We, the Delta Command, do hereby set in motion the principles of this document, the summa modus operandi of the Chaos Insurgency. We hold the following to be inescapable truths. The Foundation overseers have altered the fabric of reality for the benefit of their own wicked desires. These alterations are the source of all supernatural activity in our universe. These grievances we hold against them. The 13th Overseer has blasphemed the natural order in his foul contract to stay the hand of death, and has usurped the fragile balance of life and given an impenetrable shield to the horrid adulterers of the Foundation. The 12th Overseer has stolen the wealth of the world to benefit the Foundation's insidious designs, and has taken the fruits of many millions for the purpose of turning those labors against the laborers. The 11th Overseer has spun a circle of lies around the people of this world to protect the Foundation's interests, and has cast a dark eye onto the void to gaslight and pervert true human understanding. Note: to the reader, in my travels I've seen a great many horrors and wonders, and none are perhaps so great and terrible than those individuals who call themselves the overseers of the SCP Foundation. These individuals, who were once men and women themselves, have long since abandoned their humanity for the purpose of a pure-minded dedication to a single idea: the study and control of anomalous interactions in this universe. The amount of power they hold is staggering, and in many cases they can be more fearsome, I believe, than the entities they contain. To this end, I have dedicated my life to their study, tracking them, and understanding them. This journal is the sum of my research, documenting the strange and unusual characteristics of these fearsome people. I cannot say what you may intend to use this information for, but I hope you find it helpful. All the best. File number 001/13, O513, the other Overseer. Formerly Dr. Felix Carter, Caucasian male, date of birth unknown. Was once a doctor for a research consortium named the International Academy of Existential Sciences, early conspirator of O51, and the individual called the Administrator. Supposedly was a bargaining chip used in a deal made with death itself to allow death a seat on the council, while it grossly prolonged the lives of the overseers. Presumed extremely dangerous. Location is only speculated and considered impossible to reach. Journal entry: the 13th Overseer. The story of the Overseer's rise to power begins with the individual known as the Other Overseer. Certain occult groups talk about him as if he is a sort of demon, and based on the information available to me, it is hard to deny their reasoning. As the story is told, the Overseers once had access to the Fountain of Youth, a spring of water that would heal ailments and restore life, so long as you drank from it. Despite this, they found the limitations of this process stifling. They could drink and be young forever, but were still subject to death by any number of other means. The Overseers, determined to maintain their legacy perpetually, decided to conduct an occult ritual of their own, one that had been taught to them by the long-since diminished Children of the Endless Waste. By bringing a person to the very brink of death and keeping them there, they would be able to summon death itself, who, no doubt seeking to collect the soul, would appear to finish the job itself. It was decided that this would fall to the 13th Overseer, a man named Felix Carter, who prior to his involvement in the Foundation had been a physicist of some renown in certain circles. It is likely that Dr. Carter, of whom little record now exists, was among the first individuals contacted by the person who would later be called the Administrator, when the Foundation was in its infancy. By all accounts, the ritual was performed successfully, and the Avatar of Death appeared before the Council to bargain for the man's soul. Instead, the first Overseer proposed a deal: the life of Dr. Carter and his seat on the Council, in exchange for a stay of mortality for the other members. The extent of these negotiations is unknown, but it is believed that the Overseers were successful in convincing Death to agree to their terms. In order to preserve Dr. Carter's body and protect the structure of their contract, the Overseers had to find somewhere in the world to keep it, where it could never be found by another person ever again. I cannot say for certain where Dr. Carter's body is today. However, it is known that there is a location in the South Atlantic, in the cold and dangerous waters near the Central Islands, where sailors have periodically reported feeling a strange presence, something they could not identify and could not see. Something that seemed to impair their very ability to perceive at all. This phenomenon I know well. The sailors, I believe, were suffering from exposure to a particularly potent anti-meme, something that humans are not capable of perceiving. It is rumored in some circles that in days long past, there existed a number of structures around the world that, possibly due to some calamity, were abandoned when their builders were suddenly and quietly snuffed out. These structures, it is said, would have been capable of sustaining similar powerful anti-memes. If this structure would exist, and I believe it very well may, it would only be possible for a human to perceive it if under the influence of a drug called a nestic, a powerful psychoactive medicine that alters the way human brains process information. Unfortunately for all those who might be seeking out Dr. Carter's resting place, the entire supply of nestics in the world is controlled by the very Foundation who put him there. This, I believe, can be no coincidence. One last point of interest. There was a study conducted years ago by the Coalition to see if they could replicate the effects of nestics using non-anomalous substances. Nearly all of the trials failed, but one showed promise. Dark rum, if exposed to sea air, has a very mild nestic property. This study was cancelled, and attempts to replicate the results were unsuccessful. Were it me, I might have considered combining the alcohol with laudanum, which has been known to exacerbate the effects of certain hallucinogens. However, it is perhaps for this reason that there are stories of sailors describing a towering black spire carved out of the pillars of pandemonium itself, appearing to them briefly as their ships were trashed by the uncaring seas. Or it could be nothing. To date, there are no records of any sightings of Dr. Carter since the day he was supposedly given up in exchange for life everlasting. If he still exists somewhere in the world, I would imagine an unknowable, imperceptible prison deep in the world's roughest seas would be the exact place he might be. Should one encounter the Overseer and the Avatar of Death, it could go without saying that extreme caution would be advised. No living man can say how far the grip of death extends. End of entry. File number 001/12. O512. The Accountant. Previous name unknown. African male. Appears to be in his 40s. Well-known figure in financial markets, though rarely spoken of publicly, if ever. Dresses in expensive tailored clothing, with similarly expensive jewelry. Wears dark glasses. Apparent mathematical genius, supposedly capable of running the calculations for probability itself in his mind. Likely anomalous influence. Maintains Foundation financial accounts. Manipulates trade markets in order to accrue wealth for the Foundation and, by extension, himself. Supposedly, as members of his own staff seated at high-level positions on financials boards for all major world governments. Journal entry. The 12th Overseer. Note: 12th is spelt with an F, not a V. Learn something new every day. The 12th Overseer, often called the Accountant, is one of the more interesting personalities of the Council. His position on the Council was previously held by an unnamed individual who died sometime prior to the signing of the contract with Death. After the previous O512 died, the position was filled almost immediately, leading some to believe that the previous O512 perhaps didn't die, and more, was killed, to make room for the current O512's remarkable abilities. O512, named Omar Ulawe in the earliest record I have found, is nothing short of the world's premier mathematical prodigy. He was born in a small village in Uganda, but quickly distinguished himself for his remarkable gifts. It is thought by many of my sources that his ability to mentally perform complex abstract arithmetic is anomalous, and while that is likely a near certainty, there is no definite proof. The Overseer was purportedly employed by a small Ugandan accounting firm in his youth, where he quickly gained a reputation for his ability to perform calculations faster than any calculator. How he was approached by the Foundation, and what was offered to him, is unknown. But the man named Omar died in 1966, and shortly thereafter, the new Overseer took his seat, on the Council. What is perhaps most unique about the Overseer is his ability to perform the calculations required to accurately predict the outcome of seemingly random probability to a nearly flawless degree. Rumors abound that it was this ability that truly led the Foundation to dominance, as he was able to accurately predict, by close observation and analysis of market trends, the rise and fall of powerful nations, as well as the actions of other potentially hostile groups. One source indicated that they believed it was he who had first proposed the creation of the Omega-7 Task Force, in order to later discredit General Bowie and allow the American to usurp his position on the US Government Security Council. However, calling his ability omniscience is not accurate. While the Overseer can accurately predict the outcome of events that are affected by other events, it is likely that he does not do as well when presented with scenarios that do not have large enough data sets. In other words, he's easily capable of determining the outcome of events with many inputs. He has some trouble with isolated incidents, such as guessing a number one person might be thinking. He's not a mind reader by any stretch of the imagination, even if he seems like one. As for his behavior, the 12th Overseer is a reclusive individual and does not eagerly seek out gatherings of people, unlike some of his colleagues. I was on assignment once, undercover in an event where there were several speakers talking about global market trends and projections. There was one individual I noticed who looked remarkably uncomfortable being there, and as he was not my target, I did not interact with him beyond a friendly smile in passing, which he did not respond to. It was not until later that I learned that this man was the accountant. Despite this, he does not seem to generally appear in highly populated areas, typically because those areas tend to correspond with active markets, such as New York, London, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. Based on my observations, he generally travels with a small group of armed guards, though I have on several occasions witnessed him traveling alone. I can presume that his retinue was not far behind. The accountant will be a devilishly difficult person to corner, and practically impossible once he knows you're looking for him. If he is aware of your intentions, he will quickly disappear, and as was the case when I tried trailing him back to his safe house in Berlin. Shortly afterwards, I was pursued by his guards until I was out of the city, and I have not seen the man since. If you choose to try to ascertain the location of or apprehend the accountant, you must take him by surprise. Otherwise, he will not only outthink you, but he will outplay you as well. The Foundation may keep him around, sour personality and all, to move their money around, but he's no less a dangerous individual than anyone else listed in this document. One last thing, whether it will be helpful or not. One of my sources believes that he sets his entire routine based on local train schedules, as that is his favorite way to travel. Worth considering either way. End of entry. File number 001/11. O511. The Liar. Date of birth unknown. Unknown descent. Unknown origin. Unknown gender. Incredibly difficult to identify. Single identifying mark is a small scar on the left temple, usually hidden by hair. Generally appears as a wealthy woman in lavish outfits. Primary disinformation entity within the Foundation. Oversees teams that maintain cover stories, amnestic supply. Supposed connection with the gargantuan aquatic entity in the Bay of Bengal. Possible reality-bending properties. Extremely dangerous. Notably, no records seem to exist of the appointment of O511. Unlike all other members, who were either chosen by O51 or voted onto the council after the death and non-recovery of one of their colleagues, O511 seems to have simply appeared on the council one day. Journal entry. The 11th Overseer. O511 is one of the most interesting personalities on the council, as they don't appear to have any defined personality at all. The 11th Overseer is often called the Liar, a name given to them due to the nature of their work. They are the individual in charge of maintaining the Foundation's deceit operations, those departments dedicated towards convincing the world at large that neither the Foundation or the monsters in her care exist. However, the exact nature of O511 is still a mystery. At times, it seems as if the position has been filled by many different people simultaneously. The reasons for this seemed at first unclear. However, documents recovered from several early council meetings indicated that the Overseer was a single person, and who that person was surprised even me. According to those documents, the individual known as O511 is actually an acutely powerful polymorph, one capable of changing their identity from one to another at will. This allows them to act with discretions in situations where it would be advantageous that they not be identified. Furthermore, the name that appeared on the official record for that first meeting is none other than Sam Beale, a former insurgency agent who was presumed killed after a shipping accident off the coast of Bangladesh. Now this struck me as peculiar indeed. Why would an agent of the insurgency, an organization known for its policy of suicide over capture against any odds, be sitting on the council of the SCP Foundation? The more I began digging, the stranger the story became. My sources in the area described an incident where a fisherman reported a ship being pulled from the bottom of the sea, and the men recovering the ship finding a person on board, alive, despite being underwater for days if not weeks. The report indicates that the Foundation quickly moved in to apprehend the subject, who was not seen again afterwards. O511 simply appeared on the council afterwards, with no explanation. The story continued to perplex me. It was not until I recovered a recording of a meeting between a junior chairman of the Ethics Committee and the Site-305 director that the truth began to come into focus. According to those men, the Overseer was frequently meeting with the Overseer known as Green, and the subjects of their meetings was the recovery of O511's identity. However, despite their best efforts, it seems that they were unable to recreate the identity of Sam Beale, but were able to create an abundance of other identities, each aware of and cooperative with each other. And then, a breakthrough. By nothing more than chance, I stumbled across a newspaper clipping from a Guatemalan city where one of the known aliases of O511 had been involved in an incident involving the death of a local politician. There were several witnesses to the crime. However, none of the individuals present seemed to be able to recall any details of the event. This was, I thought, remarkable, as amnestic technology that advanced had not yet been discovered, and I worried that we were seeing a breakthrough in Foundation capabilities. However, that was not the case. Other recovered documents indicate that they were still working on the compound that would eventually lead to the modern A-class amnestic at the time this incident took place. Instead, it is now believed that the reason the witnesses were not able to recall what happened is the Overseer itself, which apparently can exhibit an anomalous amnestic property at will. This, at the time, was nothing short of revolutionary. Over time, eventually after the discovery of the compound the Foundation called Y909, the Overseer's active influence in disinformation campaigns began to wane. However, their involvement in organizing those campaigns increased considerably. The Foundation had a department of disinformation, but the 11th Overseer completely revitalized the field and created the Department of Public Awareness and Perception Management, with themselves as the head. I am left, though, with lingering doubt about the nature of Sam Beale's involvement in this case. While it is possible that the inclusion of their name on that first report was simply a mistake or some kind of mocking jab at the insurgency, who could later go on to claim that Sam was captured and tortured by the Foundation despite evidence to the contrary, this seems like an outcome without purpose, especially considering the great lengths that I, or anyone else, would have to go through to get their hands on the document. So I'm left with this thought. Perhaps it is indeed coincidence, or perhaps the person that got pulled from the waters of the Bengal Sea was Sam Beale, and that they lost any memory of themselves in those dark waters for the long time that they were down there. Perhaps in becoming the 11th Overseer, they lost the person they had been, and despite the Foundation's efforts to recover that person and learn what they could from them about the insurgency, they were unable to bring them back from the dark. And maybe the blank slate that remained when the thing that had been Sam Beale was the perfect vessel for a variety of personalities and abilities, all of which collectively accumulated into the identity of the 11th Overseer, who, by the time the Foundation realized had assumed command of one of their most powerful departments, had made them all forget they had ever not been there. End of entry. Lesson complete. For more orientation training, subscribe to SCP Orientation, or watch these playlists.